throughout the 1980s, you chased the championship.
Right.
And it was Sam and Jack, and then it was Larry Pearson and Brett Bodine, and then it was Tommy Ellis, and you just never quite got to the promised land, so to speak. 1989, you're leading the standings going into Charlotte.
Right.
With 3 races to go. It's looking pretty good. But the race at Charlotte doesn't pan out for you.
We'd qualified somewhere in around the top 10, and I missed the driver's meeting. Well, that put me to the back of the field. And we had a pretty good car at Charlotte. You know, I can remember it well. And I started in the rear of the field, and about, I don't know, just a few laps into the race, I saw something when I was going down the backstretch bouncing on the track. It had come off another car, and it went right straight through my radiator. And I didn't even know that I had hit anything, but I just saw that part of bouncing on the racetrack. I didn't know it hit it. Well, about a lap later, 2 laps later, I looked at the water temperature, and it was pegged out. Well, by that time, when I had got back to pit road, motor was done gone. So that knocked me out, and Rob won the race at Charlotte.
Yeah.
And so he gained all those points because I was dead last. He was first. Well, then we go to Martinsville, and I'm still looking okay, you know.
Well, you go into Martinsville, and you got the lead back at Rockingham because I think he got black flagged for something at Rockingham. So you go into Martinsville, and you're still leading by 19 points.
Yeah, I'm still good.
Yeah.
I'm still good at Martinsville, and the engine blows up. 25 laps from the end or something like that.
As long as you had been chasing that prize, how difficult was that for you to take?
Well, it was hard to swallow, you know, because everything went pretty good for the whole season, and we had such a good point lead going into Charlotte that I felt like if I could just finish the races anywhere like in the top 10, which I felt awful good about, you know, the next 3 races. But by Rob winning the race and us finishing dead last, there went all the points, you know.
Now, why'd you miss the driver's meet?
Damn fine, I don't have a clue why I missed.
You got to blame it on Scott, man. He was your crew chief.
No. It wasn't.
Blame it on somebody.
It didn't have anything. I can't put the blame on nobody but me. You know, I mean, for some reason I was messing around somewhere around the racetrack, and it didn't even dawn on me. And I mean, the drivers' meeting, they always posted it. I knew when it was supposed to be and everything like that. And when I looked at my watch, if I had a watch on or looked at the time, I was an hour late. And I said, oh, Lord, you know. But I thought we'd still been okay.
Yeah.
But the deal knocking the radiator out of it and the motor blowing up, then.
So when you look back on that, is that a deal where you think, well, maybe if I hadn't missed the driver's meeting, or do you think, well, maybe if I just hadn't hit that piece of debris and it hadn't went through my radiator?
Either one.
Okay.
I mean, that's just the way. That's just the way the chips fall. I mean, that's the way they fell, and I accept it, and I'm fine with it. Didn't win the championship, and we'll go on down the road and forget about it.
One of my favorite stories in Second to None, after the race at Martinsville, after Rob had won the championship and after you'd fallen short, he winds up in your van during the modified race. What do you remember about that conversation?
I don't know. We was sitting out there, and we'd fixed us a drink, or we was having a beer or something, and we was sitting in there talking about it. And I mean, we had been friends, and he and Marty, they were like this.
Yeah.
They were absolutely like this. Marty would go down, and he would stay down at Rob's and down at Dick's and on Lake Norman. They would go down there. And Rob always, Marty would come back and tell stories about Rob. He said, Rob said when he got through racing, he wanted to be a professional bowler.
A bowler.
Yeah, and Marty said, "You know where his trophy for winning Charlotte was?" And I said, "No, where was it?" And he said he had put it in a closet down there in his bedroom, back in with where he had a bunch of old dirty linen and old uniforms and stuff. But it was stuck back in there. And he said, Rob said he wanted to be a professional bowler. He said when he got done racing. But I'm glad I have got to know people like that. It's just like Earnhardt. We hung out together. We went down to South Carolina hunting together. Teresa's dad, Hal, my oldest brother, him and Dale would go down there, and they would get into some of the awfulest arguing and who was going to shoot the gun that night and who was going to hold the spotlight that night. And I mean, we've gone through all that, back through all that stuff, and I remember
spotlight.
The days.
Now we're on to something.
Yeah, we are.
Tommy, there's a judge sitting not 10 feet from us
That's
right now.
Right. I was in the back.
Oh,
I was in the back.
oh, it was all them. Okay, all right, I got it.
Hal would be, Dale would be driving, Hal would be spotting, and I'd be in the back, and they'd be arguing which one was going to shoot, and big old deer would be out in the soybean field, and all this stuff. But getting back to Rob, I got to know him well, you know, and he got to be real good friends with my son, with Marty, and it really hurt when he passed away. And the same as Dale. We were at Daytona, and Andy was driving the McDonald's car, I think it was. And Andy had fell out of the race. We left the race early, and we were up about Savannah when it come on the radio. And I told Martha, I said, "You got to pull over and stop." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because," I said, "Dale's gone." She said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "They just said on the radio, our condolences go out to all the Earnhardt family." And I said, "He's gone." And I called Hal. And Hal couldn't talk to me. He said, I told him, I said, "Hal, what's happening?" And of course, Hal, Teresa's dad, he said, "Who is this?" And I said, "This is Tommy." He said, "Tommy?" He said, "Tommy." But Hal, he was in shock too. I mean, the whole racing world lost one of the best racers that has ever come from, especially from the tracks like I grew up on, like he grew up on, to the position that he got to in his racing career. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to spend all that time with Dale. I'm glad I had the opportunity to race with Rob, and the same as a lot of other racers. I mean, like Gene Glover, just to name. There's several out there that I got to really be friends with and got to race against and be competitive at a time in our life when racing really didn't mean that much to us, other than we all go down here on Saturday night and get in an old trap automobile and we race around the racetrack and see who can win and who can do the best, and then we go back home, and that's just the way it was. And I feel blessed that I've got to be able to do that in my lifetime.
Tommy, when it comes to Rob, people today, I think when they remember him, they remember how he died. What would you like for people to know about the Rob Moroso that you knew?
Oh, well, I mean, Rob was way. He was just a good kid. He was like my sons, and I can truly say they have been very good, very good children, very good sons for us, for Martha and me, and we'll be married. We've been married 56 years last month.
No kidding.
And
wow.
Yeah, and. Yeah, we've been together, and we've been out and about, and we've seen it all pretty much, But Rob was when he come on the scene, he was a really good kid. He'd hang out. He didn't know where to mash the gas when he'd go in the corner, because sometimes he'd go down in the corner and I'd see him in a spot like Richmond, somewhere like that. He'd be headed down into the corner. He'd slow way up. He'd head down in the corner. And then he'd mash the gas wide open and turn it down across the racetrack and come up across the racetrack. But that was things that he learned, you know. I mean, and he learned from all of us, people just like Jack and Tommy Ellis, Jimmy Hensley, myself. I mean, that was things that he would come ask, and he would ask questions. We would ask him when he would got to a place like Atlanta or Charlotte somewhere. You know, he'd be running pretty good, because most time Birdie could get him going. Steve Bird could get him going, put him in pretty good stuff. And Rob was kind of like Jeff Gordon at the time being, because Jeff had no fear when he got to those big tracks. And we were a little bit leery because we'd hit a lot of walls, you know, back through our years. And we'd ask Rob if he knew what gear he had in the car. And he said, I think we got the brown one in it today. He said, because he said, I know we got a blue one and we got a brown one down there. We were trying to figure out whether he had a 380 gear, whether he had 390 gear or 400, whatever. And they used to paint them things, that old red oxidation or some kind of paint that they put on those things. They had, but Rob said, I got the brown one in today. But he didn't have a clue about anything else about it. You know.
Tommy, you have mentioned Scott, and you've mentioned Marty, and you've mentioned Andy. Scott eventually became your crew chief, and Marty and Andy, they were both big parts of your team, and they were also looking to maybe get their own driving careers off the ground. What did it mean to you as their dad to have what was a pretty family-oriented team?
Yeah, we did at the time being when Southern Biscuit come on board. I mean, we were all totally family. That was, you know, that's what it was all about. And we sold a lot of products for Mid-State Mills Southern Biscuit Flour, you know. And, I mean, we'd go out in Nashville, places like that. People would come out there. They said, it's really good to see that you got that kind of sponsorship on your car and everything like that. This one old guy come out, and he was sitting way up in the grandstand at Nashville, and he come down there, and you could smell he'd been beered up pretty heavy, and you could smell the beer on him and everything. He said, I didn't know that was Southern Biscuit. He said, I've been up there pulling for that Southern Baptist car all night long.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. But it was really family-oriented thing. And it went on, and of course, I think that's what, like Andy's spotting for Cole Custer now. He's with Stuart Haas, and he speaks really highly of his job. He was Austin Dillon's spotter for 9 years, and they won some really big races together. And he and Austin still stays in contact with people like that. And Scott is in Florida, and he's doing right well. You know, he's buying some houses and redoing those houses and reselling them. And
so he's a real estate mogul.
Yeah, well. Yeah, somewhat, you might say. But no, it's been good for us. It's the whole family atmosphere has been a good thing. And they went on and they did their things. Marty and Andy did, and I'm still proud of them because of what they do today. Because Marty will come in, and he plays the drums at our church.
Yeah.
Discovery Church in Hickory, and he's a drummer down there. But he'll come in. And he'd say, well, we had a pretty good car yesterday. You know, Anthony Alfredo's driving. He'll be driving one of the cars. And
now, what's Marty doing?
He is in charge of I say he's in charge. He's got a crew that looks after all of the Xfinity cars for Childers.
Okay.
For RCR.
Yeah, wow.
You know, so he's got a pretty good job. And he tells me that they can take a car in there like of a morning, it'll be just a bare chassis, and that evening they'll have it ready to go on the scales, you know. Just one day, motor in it, transmission, all the suspension, everything.
Well, that's about what it took you guys, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. That might have been to do that, but then we had to install the body. We had to put the body on it then.
Tommy, 1992 at Hickory. That had to be one of the most difficult wins of your career, given the circumstances with your dad.
Right. Well, I just lost my dad, and I hadn't planned on racing. And my mom, my sisters, my brothers, they said, "No," they said he would want you to race. He said this is a pretty important race for you coming up, and said he would want you to race and everything. And I thought about it the night before and all like that, and I said, yeah, I think he would, you know. And I wasn't looking forward to the race by no means, you know. But after the race started, got going, I think we started last or pretty close last. And after the race got going, you know, I kind of forgot about that and got back in a competitive mode. And then I saw that the racetrack was coming apart, and I thought, well, that could be a little bit of an advantage because it was one groove track, and I'd been on tracks like that before. And as the race progressed on, you know, I thought, well, we might just have a shot at this thing. And it got down to the last few laps there. And Bobby Labonte, in all honesty, could have probably still beat me if we'd run the last 5 laps under green. He maybe, I don't know if he could beat me without turning me around or not, but I think he could because he was quite a bit faster at the time being. Unfortunately, the race was over with at that point in time. They called it with 4 laps to go, 6 laps to go.
So they called it early, really?
Yeah, they called it early. Yeah,
okay.
They sure did. Because of the racetrack.
Yeah.
But the racetrack was all hell. I mean, you know, so they probably should have called it before then when it started coming apart. They'd put new asphalt down, and I think every grain of asphalt that you put down somewhere was on that racetrack, like it was slick track.
Yeah.
You know, and if you got up off that bottom, if you got the right side tires up off the bottom, you were gone. I mean, everybody.
Well, I was actually going to ask, that was going to be my next question. Yeah. The 300-lap race?
Yeah.
26 cautions.
Right.
How could you possibly get in any kind of groove before they threw another yellow flag? You spun at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all I spun? I might have spun a couple.
Is that all?
Yeah, but I mean, and you had people in there. You had Earnhardt and Waltrip, and Jimmy Spencer was in there, you know, Mr. Excitement. I mean, he made it for good, and of course Bobby Labonte was in there, and he really had a good car that day, and Kenny Wallace, and I mean, you had a class field of cars there, but it was treacherous. It's kind of like the Roval was. Yeah. You know, on all the water and everything.
If it had been any other track other than Hickory, because that's where you cut your teeth. Right. You had made thousands upon thousands of laps there.
Right.
If it had been any other track, do you think you would have went ahead and run that race because of your dad?
Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, I had a lot after I thought about it, and after the race and everything. We had a lot of fans at Hickory, and it was a packed house that day. I mean, it was people everywhere. And after I thought about it, I thought, well, I'm glad I did that because it's kind of being selfish to not do it, and I'm sure everybody could have understood. You know, because my dad passed away, but me and my dad, we were pretty close. He was a house painter. He painted all his life, and we were pretty close. Matter of fact, my older brothers and sisters said that he petted me a lot, my dad, and I reckon he did because I did get by with a lot that I should have got my licks from him. But I miss him. I mean, I still miss him today. But he was just an old country guy that go make a living and go back down and see what's happening back down on the hill by the creek and stuff like that. And but he was a good guy.
Tommy, 1994 in the spring, you did miss the race at Richmond. That was the first race in the history of the Busch Series that you had ever missed. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about the weekend, and how difficult was that for you to miss that race?
Well, it was pretty difficult as far as not being able to get our car in, because I got in Rick Bass's car. Rick and Johnny Hayes and those guys, I think they said they'd let me start the race. And,
so they did. You did start that race,
and that, yeah. I didn't. We didn't start it in our car.
Okay, all right.
But I was in Rick Bass's car, and we started last because I was starting the car, and we got to about the 100 lap mark, and I had just passed Mark Martin for the lead, and then we had a caution, and Rick got in then, and I think he wound up fourth in the race, but it was time. At that point in time, I could see the writing on the wall, and I could see that the sponsorships was harder to get. You're getting up in age, you're getting up in your late 40s, and so on like that. But after we went to Daytona in '95, I believe it was, when we had a big wreck there on the first lap and everything, and we had a really good car down there that day. And first lap, tore the car all to pieces, along with a whole bunch of other people that was tore up that day. And I think Ron Cooper hit me head on, and he got some kind of brain damage out of it, Because I remember whenever he hit me, I had turned around backwards and was going down along the wall, the outside wall at Daytona, probably still running 100 miles an hour backwards. And I remember Cooper hitting me, and when it did, it stretched me so much that my helmet, I had a full face helmet on, it come down like this. My head was up in the roll cage, up in the car like this. But fortunately, it didn't, it didn't knock me out or anything like that. It was. But after that, I said, I don't need to do it anymore. I just said, it's over. I'm quitting after that. And then got talked into a couple races to run, old timer, and then go to Bristol, racing with Glotchback and Pearson and Larry Pearson and David and Jack and all of them and everything. And then Larry gets hurt up there. And after I got out that time, I said, I don't need it anymore. I just don't need it, People said, would you not want to make another lap in a race car? And I might in one of these cars one of these new cars that you got now, like a new Cup car or something. Yeah. I might, but I'd just go however fast I want to go, see.
Yeah.
not however fast it takes to be competitive.
Yeah.
But no, I've had it.
I heard a story the other day that I had to ask you about. You did finish second at Bristol in the spring of 1994, and there's a rumor out there that you had pulled up alongside Mark Martin to congratulate him on winning, and because he was paying attention to you, that's basically why he pulled into the pits a lap early. Yeah. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I pulled up beside of him. I pulled up beside of Mark, said congratulations, Well, I was running third because David was running second. Yeah. And so we get around back over there, and Mark just peels off, pulls in the pit. And I said, he ain't took the flag yet. I mean, it surprised me as much as it did him, I'm sure. Yeah. But I kept on going because I wanted to see the checkered flag, you know. That's pretty wild.
So now we know the rest of the story.
Yeah, there it is. But see, getting back to it, Mark helped me back through a couple times late in my career. We was trying to go to Atlanta, make the race, and he gave me a setup, and he said, this setup, he said, it'll get you in the race. And it did. It got us in the race in like 15th, 16th, somewhere along in there. You know, it was a really, really good setup. But he was friends. You know, I could never complain about him being in Cup and then running the Busch races with somebody like that.
You had the chance to watch Marty and Andy's racing careers develop, and now Andy's son, Clark, is coming up through the ranks and racing. What's that mean to you personally to watch generations of the Houston family racing?
Well, when Clark when he first started racing, he was racing through the woods back over in Alexander County, and I thought, oh Lord, this boy's going to kill himself in the woods in that thing. And then he said he wanted to race cars, and then he started racing down at Millbridge Speedway, racing, and he was all over the place and out in the cornfields and everywhere else, you know. And so then he wanted to progress on into cars because he's 16, 17 years old. And so they got lined up with Ashley Huffman, Dwight Huffman. He was promoter at Hickory Speedway at one time, and he's driving Ashley's truck. And he's got some pretty good sponsorships come with him and everything like that. And I think he's run like 12 or 13 races, and he's won 2 of them.
Okay.
You know, so he's got the potential there. He's pretty good. But he keeps sitting on the pole every week that he goes. But they keep drawing this pill out of this bottle, and they invert the top 6. Well, he keeps winding up back about 5th or 6th on it. And he's not starting on the pole, you know. Excuse me. So that's hurting him on it. But he's going to be a pretty good racer. Not because he's my grandson, but I've watched him race at Kingsport, Anderson, South Carolina. You know, Tri-County Speedway, places like that. And he's going to be okay. He's going to do good.
All right. I know this is an open-ended question. But how would you like to be remembered by race fans?
Well, I reckon I'd like for people to remember me kind of like I remember a lot of the older guys, you know, like Junior Johnson. I'm not comparing myself to Junior Johnson by no means, but I always thought that people like Junior Johnson, Richard Petty, people just like Richard Childers, you know, Ray Hendricks, people like that. I mean, they were remembered as not only were they good, they were hard-working people, but they were good people too, you know. I mean, they had their ups and downs, and they had their fights, and they had everything else, just like we did. But all in all, it gets back to, you know, thank God for everything that you got, and I do every day, and I thank God for every a bit of success that we had on the racetrack, and I just want to be remembered in that kind of a tone, you know, or that kind of a light, so to speak.
Tommy, I hate to end an interview with you, because you are one of the all-time greatest storytellers ever.
I don't know about that.
So is there a story that you just feel like you have to get off your chest that people would like to hear, that people would enjoy, that people would love to hear?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, I was caught up in the racing deal and everything. When Andy first started, he had a what you call a limited sportsman car, and he would take it to the racetrack, and he would run. And I remember him coming to the supper table, and Martha would put a supper on the table, and Scott and Marty and Andy, they would all be there. We'd be eating supper, and And he'd say, do you think, and this did make the 7th or 8th time in a row, he said, do you think I'm on a wreck every time I go to the racetrack? Because he'd come back and he'd have something tore off the car. You know, he'd be in some kind of a mess. Well, anyway, he got way better than that.
Yeah.
But he was at Tri-County, and he had broke a brake rotor had broke on the thing, and this was during the race. Well, they had a kind of a red flag type deal. He's there again, a limited car, and went out there, and I said, "Give me a block of wood." He said, I ain't got no brakes. And I said, "Give me a block of wood." And he said, "Why? Well, you want a block of wood?" And I stuck it up in the brake caliper up between the brake pads and everything like that, so he could go on and finish the race.
A block of wood.
Block of wood stuck up in there. But see, when you hit the brake pedal, the other 3 wheels brakes on it. But if he'd ever hit the brake one time and that block of wood wouldn't been in there, it just shot the pucks out and the fluid would have went everywhere, and he wouldn't have no brakes at all. it worked. That and Rick, I've seen things in my lifetime in that racing garage when they were growing up that they were trying to do and to get their careers going, that I thought, oh my God, I can't let them do this. I absolutely can't let them do this. So I'd go to them and tell them everything else. They had to learn pretty much on their own, you know.